Okay, so in this video we'll talk about naps that are over 20 minutes long but under 90 minutes, which makes them not naps and not cores. We'll discuss the potential of them and why you should mostly avoid them, so stay tuned. Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Crimson Flower and I'm a main author of Polyphasic.net, the community recommended resource for polyphasic sleepers. This isn't a sort of unique video by any means. We've already released videos both explaining the optimal nap length and pronaps, and if you haven't seen them, you can check them out after this video. The link to them will be in the description. But the point of the video is to explore the subject further and to ponder about whether there is actually some potential to the mid-cycle sleeps. Let me just remind you that what pronaps are if you haven't seen that video. Pronaps are longer naps scheduled to occur during the REM peak, which enables the body to bypass the SWS wakes, since SWS wakes seldom happen during the REM peak. So similarly to pronaps, the goal here is to avoid SWS wakes too, but it's a little bit more finicky to pull off that successfully than pronaps. To explore this further, I first need to explore what the sleep architecture of a sleep cycle is. So if it's the first sleep cycle in a sleep, since you've fallen asleep, you first enter roughly 20 minutes of light sleep, followed by a block of slow wave sleep, and then a block of light sleep, and the sleep cycle ends with a block of REM sleep. Once your sleep repartitions, the first light sleep block will be removed and replaced with a faster onset of vital sleep. And as your sleep repartitions further, the light sleep in the middle of the sleep cycle will also be replaced by vital sleep. So if you start your sleep in the SWS peak, your sleep cycle will look something like this, that's shown on the screen. And if you start in the REM peak, your sleep cycle will look something like this, also shown on the screen. But in this case, we're not interested in naps that take place during either of these peaks, since naps aren't really suited for the SWS peak due to issues with waking up from SWS, which, as you saw, is prevalent in the first cycle in the SWS peak. And we're also not interested in naps that take place during the REM peak, since those would be pronaps, which we have already discussed or covered in a previous video. No, these naps will take place during the day, to which this sleep cycle is best suited. So yeah, the goal with these naps is to time your wake-up so that they occur in the middle block of light sleep in a sleep cycle, right here, as you can see on the screen. And while this looks super easy on paper, it's unfortunately quite difficult to pull off. See, if your sleep cycles look the same every day, and if they were the same for every person in the world also, this would be a very realistic solution to strive for, but unfortunately, this light sleep block shifts as your adaptation progresses and your overall schedule repartitions more. So in the beginning of your adaptation, the middle light sleep block will be quite big, but once you start getting more vital sleep, it shrinks in size. It can also move, or in other words, the SWS can have a longer duration one day and the same can happen with the REM block there, so they will the slow wave sleep block will become longer and then shorter, and the same with the REM sleep block, it will be longer and shorter, so the light sleep block moves by proxy. Which also makes it very hard to consistently time the light sleep block. As we've talked in the video discussing the strictness of polyphasic sleep schedules, which will also be linked in the description, it's imperative that you wake up at the same time every day, because otherwise your body will treat it as you under and oversleeping, which is a great way to destroy your adaptation. If you want a more in-depth explanation, check out the video. Okay, so thus far I've talked about issues with using mid-cycle light sleep blocks to wake up or to ensure good wake-ups. But what's the benefit of actually succeeding with this? Well, if you could use these mid-cycle blocks to your advantage, it would allow you to have an even greater potential for the vital sleep percentage in your sleeps. See, when you skip out on this light sleep block in the beginning of the cycle, as I showed earlier, and now on screen also, the time you spend in light sleep will be smaller than if you catch it and sleep for a full sleep cycle, which is really cool if you try to min-max your sleep duration. Also, of course, you'd spend less time sleeping during the day, which is one of the biggest downsides for triphasic, for example. Though, as we discussed in the pronaps video, using longer naps would most likely not enable you to stay awake longer in a row, so these mid-cycle sleeps would not be able to allow you to stay awake for 12 hours, for example, on Everyman 2. Okay, so now you know the pros and cons of these mid-cycle naps. Now I want to talk about something quite interesting, okay? These mid-cycle naps or wakes have sort of already been utilized on some schedules. Yeah, that's right, you didn't expect that, alright? There are variants of dual core 2, where the first core is 2.5 hours long instead of 3 hours. And this often happens when the second core is scheduled to not happen during the REM peak, but instead in the area between the sleep peaks, as shown in this nap chart right here. And what's even more interesting is that when people attempt dual core 2, they don't immediately try to go for this schedule. Instead, what happens is that they start waking up by themselves only 2.5 hours after their scheduled start for the core. Since the second course helps alleviate the SWS need a bit, this extra half-hour block in the first core isn't really needed anymore, and the body just chucks it away. So that's extremely cool, and but unlike what we talked about in this video, these mid-cycle wakes aren't fully utilized in the first sleep cycle and instead automatically develop in the second sleep cycle in a row. So it's not really the same thing, but the concept is still there. And also a big difference is, of course, that these mid-cycle wakes happen automatically. I'm not aware of anybody attempting to go for a 2.5 hour dual core 1 core, or sorry, dual core 2 core from the beginning of the adaptation, but if some of you have attempted it and succeeded with it, be sure to share it in the description, in the comment section, so other people can also take part in that and know that it's actually possible, because the only thing I've seen is this shortening happening automatically. Great. Okay, I hope that you learned something new. This is quite a heavy and experimental topic to talk about, so I hope that you won't immediately attempt a shortened Everyman 2 schedule with both naps being 40 minutes long. As we say in the community, you can start to experiment once you've adapted to at least one schedule, because you'll know your body much better then. Okay, cool. I'll be seeing you in the next video. Remember to nap well, people!